Okay, so let's get started. Um, so before I present my version of a Bayes gradient oracle, let me present what's already there in literature uh, in zeroth order optimization, and then we'll show what's the tweak that we bring in to form a new oracle. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. So let's say a little background material. Yeah. So this is on regular stochastic optimization. So the goal here is usually it's like minimum you want to minimize some function, say f of x, or some domain, and this is an expectation of some function like this. Now this is your objective, and this is the noise, and this is your sample, say performance if you're optimizing something. So this is your performance objective, and you get to observe sample performance. So when I talk about okay, so for the rest of this talk, this not assumed to be convex. We do attack the convex case separately in the paper, but for the presentation, I'll just focus on the non-convex case. We'll assume f is smooth. I'll make the assumption precise. F is smooth, which is like saying that it has Lipschitz gradients. And so we are looking at stochastic smooth optimization, but let's look at zeroth order input. So this is the optimization problem you want to solve. What is an optimization algorithm given? So zeroth order input. What I mean by zeroth order input is, by the way, I didn't check. I hope I'm audible. So yeah, should I do this at the beginning? Yeah. So what you get to see is a sample performance, which is a noise corrupted observation of the objective. And more importantly, gradients is not directly made available. You got function observations, but not the gradients. You still want to do gradient descent, but you're not given the gradient, so you want a way to estimate and all that. But is the setting? I hope the setting is clear.
Yes.
Now with this setting, you can make up, gradient measurements. Okay, so the algorithm that I'm trying to look at is a stochastic gradient algorithm. So the goal is to make a stochastic gradient algorithm work in this setting. Stochastic gradient algorithm. So imagine it has an usual incremental update, xk plus 1 equals xk minus some step size. This is my gamma. That's the best I can write as gamma. Yeah, okay, let me write this as gk. Yeah. I'll throw in a projection operator as well. So we're doing projected gradient descent. This is projection operator, which does projections onto this set here. Imagine we are in the d-dimensional space. So given this is a projection operator. This is your step size or learning rate, and this is your gradient estimate. Now the question is, I mean, there's a whole bunch of methods to estimate gradient from zeroth order input. So with zeroth order information, okay, one can form gradient estimates that satisfy a bunch of properties. So suppose, okay, imagine, okay, so this can be done as an oracle. Okay, imagine satisfy two important properties. Properties relating to bias and variance. I'll make this precise. So what I want is making up a oracle what you pass is an x and also a parameter, let's call this eta, and what you get is a gradient estimate, not psi, sorry, eta. So what is this eta? This is a parameter that controls bias variance, bias that allows you to trade off bias and variance. So the first property is okay. I need to make this random. So let me put this notation as noisy. So this is a random or gradient estimate. Let me just put gradient estimate. Sorry about all this. Just trying to make up phrases along it. This is your gradient estimate, and psi is again the noise. So now the bias of this, the L infinity norm, can be made less than equal to C1 eta square. And this is the bias property. The second property is the variance. This is the variance of the gradient estimate. Okay, so this is a bias property and this is the variance. So the point is, if you choose a very small eta, then you get a gradient estimate which has very low bias. But then we are in a random world, so this estimate would have a large variance. Yeah. So that's the trade-off that we are going to face here. So one has to judiciously choose this eta, for a given x. So that's where the trade-off. So eta allows the trade-off. Yeah, eta is used to trade off bias and variance. Now the question is, if you're seeing this, eta used to variance trade-off. The question is, if you're not willing to believe this can be made, I'll just show you a very quick way to make up such a gradient estimate. But are there any questions about this oracle itself? I mean, about this properties 1 and 2 as they are written out? No questions?
In the
All right.
chat, someone has
Sorry.
asked what is meant by zeroth order information.
Yeah, sorry. Unfortunately, what happens is I'm just writing. So if I have to see the chat, I have to go here and all. So I would suggest, you just ask the questions. So zeroth order input is this. Zeroth order input is, you have what is called as a function measurement oracle, which will give you function samples. I mean, functions, noisy function measurements, but it won't give you the gradients. So if you look at an algorithm like this, if you want to do gradient descent, you want an estimate of the gradient, or if you have a scalar problem, you want an estimate of the derivative. But imagine you're just given the function value at some point. You're given the function value, but not the gradient. So if you have a first order oracle, not a zeroth order, first order, then you can pass an x and get the gradient at that point. Okay. An unbiased estimate of the gradient. You won't have any bias variance trade-off there. Okay. Whereas with the zeroth order thing, what you will have is you can only make up a bias gradient oracle with this trade-off with a certain parameter. So that I hope clarifies what a zeroth order information is. Yeah. And think about it. So what is the motivation for zeroth order? From the world that I come in, there's this entire, field we call the simulation optimization. So what happens in simulation optimization is, imagine you want to optimize a problem. Okay, I can give you an example. Imagine you want to optimize the traffic lights in your neighborhood. And so you want to play around with different traffic lights and see what the congestion is like and things like that. And then come up with a scheme. But I don't think any traffic authority is going to let you play around with the traffic lights live. The best thing you could do is pick up a simulator. There are very good simulators for traffic simulation, modeling sophisticated ones, really costly ones also, and proprietary ones. So you can take that simulator and try your signal switching strategy. And then what you get is only a sample performance. Nobody is going to give you the function in a closed form or a gradient. You can try something and measure, see what is the congestion like. So that is the sample performance I mean when I say this. You're not given the gradient. So you want to optimize using a simulator. In most of the simulation optimization settings, when you optimize using a simulator, whatever observation sample performance you see is, it's like a noisy observation of the function that you're trying to optimize. Yeah, I hope that clarifies. Yeah. Okay, so just a quick primer on how to make up this gradient estimates. Uh, so this, let's say, how to make up such a gradient estimate. The answer is something called simultaneous it's called a simultaneous perturbation trick. I'm going to illustrate this in the most easy setting. Yeah. Again, recall. So I'm going to make this simple. You pass an x, you've got an oracle which gives you f of x plus I. Imagine it's additive noise just to make my writing easy. Yeah. And the idea is this is zero mean. You can make it a martingale difference and all that. But think about the easiest setting. And now the recipe is like this. Yeah. Recipe for G. Just avoid this. So the first thing you do is take two measurements. So this is the finite difference idea. So you take measurements of the function at two different points. Yeah, let's call this measurements one. Yeah, let's call this say y plus. Y minus is here delta is a vector, three-dimensional vector, and delta I is Rademacher. So this is IID, Rademacher, which I hope everyone knows, which is like symmetric Bernoulli. It takes plus or minus one probability half. Now given this, you estimate the ith component. So G is like G1 until G. Now Gi, the ith component is estimated as y plus minus y minus divided by 2 times eta delta I for all I. Yeah. So the point is, important thing to notice, we just use two function evaluation irrespective of the dimension. Yeah. So the trick is two function measurements irrespective of t. Yeah. So irrespective of the dimension, I just need two function measurements where I use random vector for perturbation. So this is a perturbation vector. This is a random perturbation vector. And this is your estimate. And this estimate satisfies whatever properties I have written up. Let me make this a little small. So whatever properties I wrote here, this estimate will satisfy that. And if you want to see that also, I'll spend 1 more minute and even just quickly give you a argument for that. I hope the gradient estimation is clear. Is the scheme clear? So the point is you make up a vector of random variables, and this idea is yeah, I'll tell you who did this idea after I show this. Yeah. Suppose f is smooth 3 times continuously differentiable, then I can do Taylor expansions. Say f of x plus or minus delta is f of x. Then Taylor's expansion leads to f of x plus or minus plus a second order term plus some higher order term. I'm going to hide it in this notation. Yeah, we go. Now, if I do f of x plus eta delta minus f of x minus eta delta, then the f term is gone, the second order term is gone. And then I'm left with this term, this one, 2 times. So if I divide by 2 eta, then I'm left with this product. If I divide by this, then I'm left with this. Now, if I divide by delta I, then this is a dot product. So the ith term will become this. And then I'll be left with plus summation j not equal to I, delta j by delta I. And I'm dividing by eta, so this becomes a plus order of eta square. Okay. And now the thing is the difference between G and this ratio on G is there are extra noise elements. If you assume in expectation these noise is zero mean, then what you get is expectation of Gi would be equal to this plus order of eta square, simply because this term, purely by the fact that this delta j, and so j not equal to I, and this is 0 mean. So this is 0 mean just by the choice of the distribution Rademacher. And so this is what. So this I've just shown that the expectation of GI is this. One could also show the second mount. So this is effectively the condition here that I have written. This is effectively the condition here. If I take any coordinate, the difference between the gradient in that coordinate and this is at most some constant times eta square. That's the bias. And that's exactly what I showed you for a 3 times continuously differential case. You can show this with different distributions for perturbations. You can show this, with lower smoothness requirements and all. I've taken the easy route out, using Taylor's expansion. So you can make up these estimates. So you can do. So I'm skipping the other variance part, but can show that expectation G minus expectation G less than equal to some constant by eta square. Now there's a huge literature on this. If this is a Rademacher vector, this corresponds to SPSA proposed by Small in 1992, but there are lots of other methods. There are lots, can use several other distributions for perturbations. Okay. Yeah, so much for framework. I'm just going to get into my framework after this. Yeah. Now this is where, so this is the state of the art. You can make up an oracle like this, bias gradient oracle, and get this. And the important thing we have assumed is, here we assume that this is 0 mean. Now I want to consider a setting where I don't have unbiased estimates, but have estimates which have a positive mean. With this, can I still go about and do an optimization? Yeah.
So if, if you have, if you don't use Rademacher, if you use like basis vectors and calculate each entry of gradient separately.
Yeah, then what you have to do is you have to perturb each coordinate. So then you will have to need 2D measurements.
2D measurements. In that case, do you still have this trade-off between bias and variance?
Yeah, the problem is the point about this. Yeah, you would probably still have, but the problem is not about the problem is like this the motivation comes from, let's say, simulation optimization, where each function measurements involves running a simulation, which is a computationally intensive task. That's the assumption. Then what happens is you don't want to keep on querying the system maybe in a high dimensional problem. Okay, so this is a lot more effective that way. Yeah.
So you're saying that this gradient estimation method is the key here, because that is the one that is more effective, and you don't.
Yeah, the gradient is correct. Simply because irrespective of the dimension, I just need 2 function measurements for a reasonable gradient estimate.
Yeah. So
and its convergence rate is also reasonable. It converges this with this estimate. If you do gradient descent, I mean, you can show that you can get something like the usual stochastic approximation results. You get 1 by square root n rate. You don't lose in the rate. It's not like, you took only 2 measurements and because of that, you're going to converge slowly or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether you do that, each coordinate wise perturbation. See, if you do each coordinate wise perturbation, what happens is for each coordinate, the numerator changes. Because, instead of the same vector that is perturbing all the coordinates, you're going to perturb only one of the coordinates, say ith coordinate for one or gi. Yeah. Whereas here, the numerator is the same for all coordinates. The denominator changes, but so the simultaneous perturbation comes from the idea that you're perturbing all the coordinates simultaneously, all of them, and you're adjusting using this randomness so that in expectation you get a reasonable gradient estimate. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the 2 measurements is the key, because if you are running simulations, then it is a problem. Now to our model. biased function measurements. So the implicit assumption previously was that, I have zero mean noise. Whenever I want to query a point, I get zero mean noise. And we are going to change that here. So the motive, which is like saying that f of x itself involves solving an optimization problem. Let's call this hx y comma z. So the objective itself, involves solving an optimization problem. And imagine you solve this problem, and then the function the objective function estimate. Let me call this f of x comma m. So this is an estimate. This is an estimate of the function f. So let me write it. Estimate of f of x with a batch size parameter m. So this is a batch size parameter. I'll make this precise. So what I mean to say is I can solve this problem using a large number of samples, say m, and get a very good solution to this, very good approximation to the solution. Or if I use a small number of samples, say m is small, then whatever I get is going to have a larger estimation error. Okay, so f of x comma m equals this solution, whatever you have, to this optimization problem, but it is not exact. We can't solve this exactly. Maybe you do gradient descent or use some other solver with variable batch sizes, but then there is an estimation error. This is the estimation error, and this goes down with increase in batch size. Yeah. So this is really the model that I'm going to attack. So the point is, what happens is we no longer have a zero mean noise. What we have is a positive mean. Our observations are corrupted by something which has a positive mean and not zero mean. And I can choose a parameter m which can make this small to whatever precision that I require. So I could choose m to be very large so that I get a very accurate or precise estimate of the function at point x. And this is a lot more practical. In several problems, you may not be able to get, unbiased estimates of the objective function, but estimating the objective function itself involves some other simulation or sampling and things like that. And what you get is a biased input, but that bias can be controlled. Yeah. I hope the setting is clear. So if you want an example, an example is risk sensitive optimization. So imagine you have a risk measure rho. And so what happens is rho x, given a parameter x, rho x is like the, of some random variable parameter is to x. Yeah. This is a random variable. He is running into space issues. Interest to x. Yeah. And now imagine I cannot form unbiased estimates of this. Now the estimate that I form, say rho hat m comma x of rho x, is such that its expectation is not this. It's not an unbiased estimate, but I can choose m as large as I like. Now this is true. An example of such a row is conditional value at risk. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to introduce conditional value at risk entirely, but I'll just do some hand wavy thing if you like. So imagine this is your density, and at some point, and say that this region, imagine this covers 95% of the probability mass of a certain random variable, modeling losses. Then what is conditional of a random variable, say x? So the conditional value at risk is, let me call this point as say v 0.95. So this is the point on the x-axis beyond the point at which 95% of the probability mass is covered. So okay, I can make it general alpha. Make this alpha. Example alpha equals 0.95. Now, what is conditional value at risk of this random variable at level alpha? It's the expectation of x given that x is greater than or equal to v alpha. So if I cover this something, then here this could be your C bar. Yeah. So the tail expectation. Now the point is you can use sample observations to estimate this quantile, but you won't get an unbiased estimate. So you take samples using empirical distribution, take this, and if you make up an estimate, a well-known estimate, the most famous estimate for conditional value at risk, does not satisfy this unbiasedness guarantee. But if I keep on increasing the number of samples, which is m, then I get this, obviously, yeah. So that's really one example of a risk measure where you know you don't have unbiased estimates. But if you keep on increasing samples, then you get better and better and more accurate estimates. That's really the setting. And in this setting, what can I do? Yeah. Yeah, please ask questions about this setting if you have. Yeah. Any questions? Is the setting clear? Unfortunately, I am not looking at the chat. So if you have any questions, you have to express it orally. Yeah.
Here you have not established whether it follows that bias variance trade-off.
Yeah, so the point is here, I'm going to make up an oracle which caters to such a setting.
Okay.
So I'm giving motivation here. So I'm going to make up a variation. See, what happens is, if you look at this, when I wrote down the oracle model, here there's nothing. So I had zero mean. So this is all we had. But because of this bias function measurements, I'm going to throw in something. In fact, it's actually a good question. So I can just copy this. So I'm going to make up a variation of the oracle. So biased gradient oracle, a variant. Okay, so the variant is going to be and the important thing is just have to change something. You also decide a M. So if you want to look at it as a black box, so to encapsulate this setting, what you're going to pass is an x and an eta and an m. What you're going to get is a g of x comma phi comma m. I have to fix some of the notations, but you'll get a random element which satisfies all of this. Probably have to put eta also in the g. Yeah. Yeah. And the point is this extra bit came extra bit motivated by biased function measurements. Yeah. So you could choose an m and reduce the bias. You could choose a larger n. Yeah. So the question now is, in this, what is the rate? What kind of rates I can achieve by doing gradient descent? That's the question I'm going to answer. But I hope the model is clear. I'm assuming this 1 by square root m because usual rates that you get for statistical estimation is like this only. I mean, if I erase this here and put a square root, yeah. So this is the rate you usually get. Yeah. Yeah. Usual estimation errors. Yeah. Yeah. There may be more complicated measures like risk measures where you can't achieve 1 by square root m, but right now I'm just dealing with this simpler case with the 1 by square root m estimation error. Yeah.
Eta is not dependent on m, right? Eta is separate parameter.
Yeah, eta is for the perturbation. Like, yeah. So, I mean, if you go back here, it's this. I mean, it's this business. Like now, if you want to redo this derivation, what happens is you don't have f. See, I wrote down that expectation of gi is like this gradient and all that because the model was like, some point I wrote this. The model was I had this with a zero mean noise. So if I take the expectation of the observation, the xi is gone. So I'm just left with the f parts. Whereas in the current setting, in the bias function measurements, what would happen is this, whatever observations I see is f plus something which is like 1 by square root. Yeah.
Okay.
So that 1 by square root will get added here. But this eta is focused on, the gradient estimation side of things. Whereas m is like, how well you want to estimate the function itself before going ahead and doing the gradient estimation. So m is like the mini batch size. Yeah. So those are two different things. Eta is used to trade off bias and variance, but m is used to try and get better and better function estimates, the objective itself, which can be pushed into the gradient estimation subroutine, if you see it as a subroutine. Yeah. So this is the model, and then yeah, do I have another 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so because I just want to tell what algorithm I use after this. It's a well-known algorithm and just present the bound. Yeah.
You have 20 minutes.
Oh, I have 20 minutes. That's great. Yeah. I was worried I have to stop at 45 minutes or something. Yeah. So with this model, now the question is, I want to come up with an optimization algorithm which, solves the problem, which is optimizing f, which is trying to find a local optima of f by gradient descent. So I'm going to use this randomized stochastic gradient algorithm. This is by Kadimi and Lam. I think 2015 maybe, don't remember. It's channel on optimization. The idea is very simple. So the idea is perform your gradient descent step, which is xk plus 1 equals some projection of xk minus some step size g of xk k. for n iterations. Now just need to change this. This is input from past yeah. So you got to choose your mini batch also. Choose mini batch. I should have put eta k. Choose also eta k. Unfortunate notation. Also choose eta k. Yeah. Perform this for n iteration. So you have this. The second step is after this. Pick a random iterate. Let's call this XR from you got X1 until Xn. These are the points the algorithm visited. Yeah. Yeah. Pick XR uniformly at random. From this, yeah. And now we give a bound, and the name is to show the expectation of the gradient of the function at this point is less than or equal to some is less than equal to some constant by some n power something. N power, did I use alpha somewhere? N power alpha. Yeah. So we want to show that the size of the gradient is small. So non-convex optimization setting. So the convergence guarantee is to a point where the size, which is the norm of the gradient, is small. That's really what we have. Yeah. And we show something like this. So you understand the algorithm. So the point is, I visit n points using gradient descent. I take uniformly one of them at random. And then for that random point, which is picked uniformly, I show some convergence guarantee, a non-asymptotic bound. This holds for all n. Yeah. So this is the recipe. We are going to use, we managed to show this exactly. Yeah. So for this, I just need some assumptions which I need to do. Just one note. In stochastic approximation, there is something called Polyak, Rupert, iterate averaging. Here, what you would do is you would make up an xn bar, which is like the average of all of them. N by n summation xr equals 1 to n. This is like the average of all iterates. Okay. Whereas xr is you pick uniformly at random. Picking uniformly at random is equivalent to having averaging, is equivalent to doing iterate averaging in expectation. The averaging happens in expectation. So if I take expectation of xr, I get the average iterate. So there is some connection to iterate averaging. That's all I wanted to show. So usually people do iterate averaging in stochastic approximation, but the idea of Kadimi and Lamb is you can pick a random point, but pick it uniformly at random. And that's like, you know, you're picking the average iterate in expectation. Yeah. And for this, if you make some assumptions, yeah, assumptions before I present the main result. One is smoothness assumption. The second is just assume this. So needed in the analysis. Well, I have some input now. So
actually, the smoothness assumption is difficult to justify for the minimization problem that you have, right?
Where
You have said f is equal to minimum of something. Here.
Yeah. So
maybe you have to establish it, and it would hold under certain conditions on H.
Yeah. So what I'm working with is a oracle. This was like a motivation, but I think I would still. I mean, if the function is not smooth, it's hard to go ahead with the gradient descent type approach. Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is,
yeah.
in this motivation, you may have to properly motivate it. That it could be smooth because the minimum is not smooth. Right?
Yeah. So I would have to get some conditions under which this is smooth. Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, but if you don't see it as minimum, but if you look at this as a risk, yeah, but yeah, so you have the minimum or y. Yeah, but so okay, forget this tab. The other option is risk sensitive optimization. There's no minimization.
Yeah.
It's just so as long as the risk measure is continuous in X, it's fine. Like here in this risk sensitive optimization example, you don't have a y random variable, y parameter at all. So here it's more obvious. Like if you, if you parameterize the random variable such that it leads to a smooth risk, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because you just have estimation there. Yeah. The point in this case is I cannot estimate it in an unbiased fashion. Yeah. So that's also another motivation. But yeah, I agree. Your point is valid. Yeah. You need to think about some condition when this minimum is smooth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So these assumptions are common to this analysis. Once you have these assumptions, I'll just write on the main claim. The main claim is you set gamma k, which is the step size, to be minimum of 1 by L and 1 by n power 2 by 3. And you set the perturbation constant to be 1 by n power 1 by 6 and mk to be n. Then expectation of this square less than equal to 2L of x1 minus f of x star. X star is a local optimum. I just made this. Yeah. Plus some constant which depends on the dimension divided by n power 1 by 3. This is the rate that we get if I choose mini batches like this, the perturbation constants like this, and the step size like this. Yeah. Then I get a rate which is like 1. And so the dominant term is actually this. So this is like O of 1 by n power 1 by 3. So with biased, with a bias variance trade-off, you can't get 1 by square root n, but you can get 1 by n power 1 by 3. Yeah. The estimation error does not impact anything, but it's because of the bias variance trade-off. Yeah. Now, if you really want, still have 5 minutes, I can dump something more to show that I can get 1 by square root n rate in a more specialized setting, where you don't have this bias variance trade-off in the eta parameter. But before that, any questions about this algorithm itself or something? Yeah. If there are no other questions, then a special setting where 1 by square root and rate is achieved by the randomized SG algorithm. Now here is variation where I have to copy this oracle. Yeah. Let me copy this oracle and change something. Another variant, copy this. Now the important thing is get this out. Make this eta plus some other constant. Now you don't have a bias variance trade-off here. Yeah. Now no bias variance trade-off in choosing eta, and such an oracle comes from a a deterministic optimization setting. So it's again zeroth order input. Yeah. So in this case, the random stochastic gradient algorithm will achieve the 1 by square root n rate. So for such a setting, you can look at Nesterov. How you pronounce this last name? I don't know. Yeah. If I copy this thing, I'll just paste it and show you that the rate is a lot better. Just have to change the parameters. Yeah, I get this square root n rate. So for this new oracle, where there is no trade-off really. So the point is there is no noise. Because of no noise, there is no trade-off. Yeah. So this does not scale inversely with eta. It does not scale inversely. Previously, if you chose this very small eta, the variance blew up. Whereas here, such a thing does not happen. And in that case, this thing is true. Yeah. You get a much better rate. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I had. I mean, this variance bound can be, if you just dig into the paper, Nesterov's paper, or my own paper is on archive with Nirav Bhausar. The report is on archive. You could look at all this. If you want to discuss further, just drop me an email. In any case, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yeah, in Nesterov's paper, they call it Gaussian smoothing, which is another simultaneous perturbation trick. Yeah.
So if I look at it like purely like a zeroth order optimization technique with simultaneous perturbation.
Yes.
how does this compare to the optimal rate, which is usually mentioned in terms of D? Right, so there is rate which is mentioned in terms of D.
Yeah, so we have hidden all of this, so the point is I'm not getting the things right with respect to D, because when I hide this, when I write down this oracle, the C1 and C2 would depend on the D.
Okay.
Yeah, but different methods give, different, like if I use different, perturbation vectors, I'll get different dimension dependence. So if you fix one of the schemes for estimating gradients, then you can make all of the C1 and C2 precise.
Okay.
Like if I use different random perturbations, the dependence on D in C1 would change. I'm hiding the dependence on T. I just want to figure in terms of N, like how in terms of the iterations of gradient descent, what would be best. But the C1 and C2 really depend on D. And in our paper, we mentioned the dependence for the popular schemes like SPSA and Gaussian smoothing and things like that. And in this, if you want to look at this bound that I gave for this algorithm also, here also we chose the D, we chose the step size and perturbation constants as a function of D. For the presentation, I didn't want to overload, so I've skipped that. Yeah.
Okay.
So this constant would have some function of D. And if I choose gamma k, eta k as a function of D, like if I put in the right function of D, so then I get the right dependence. Yeah.
And the ultimate result will still be order D.
Whether it's order D, I don't fully remember now. But yeah, I don't know if it is order D.
So number of iterations would still be order D.
So number of iterations is capital N. In terms of N, I'm right. But if I've got the optimal dependence on D, I'm not sure. I don't think I paid too much attention on that.
Okay.
So I've not optimized D correctly, but I optimized the N. So I tried to get the best possible rate in terms of the number of iterations capital N. Like if I run gradient descent for N steps, what is the convergence rate in terms of the size of the gradient? Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so basically what I'm saying is like in the non-convex zeroth order, all the rates that I've seen have been of the form N equal to order D divided by epsilon raised to the power something. Now if that has to hold here, this has to be D by N raised to the power 1 by 3.
But you have seen it in zeroth order, is it?
Yeah, zeroth. But
yeah, but was it noisy? Because this Nesterov paper, this whatever oracle that I wrote here finally, there's no bias variance trade-off here. So if they're taking the Nesterov's variance estimates, then it's like deterministic optimum. With the stochastic setting, this by eta square is somewhat unavoidable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason is like, I mean, I can quickly give you an answer without writing too much. So if you look at this, right, your estimate is like, if you look at this GI, I have to write it somewhere. Yeah. So GI is f of x plus eta delta minus f of x minus eta delta over 2 eta delta I plus psi plus minus psi minus divided by 2 eta delta I. And when you take the second moment, you're really squaring this guy. So you're squaring this and squaring this. Even if the noise is finite variance, I'll get a by eta square.
Yeah.
Correct. So if the noise vanishes, what happens is, yes, if the noise vanishes, if there's no noisy function measurements, then you get the oracle that I wrote before. But with noise, when you take the second moment, if you assume this is zero mean but some bounded variance and all that, then you get something like this. You get something like, bias goes like eta square, but variance will have this. So when you have such a trade-off, the best achievable rate is 1 by n power 1 by 3, at least for the convex setup. That was one of my earlier papers in AStats 2016. We attract the convex setting and show that you can't do better than 1 by n power 1 by 3 with a bias variance trade-off. We gave a lower bound. But in the non-convex case, I don't know about a lower bound. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So this 1 by eta square is dimension dependence. I don't know. I need to figure the dimension dependence. I've not been very meticulous about dimension dependence. Maybe the reviewers will fry me for that, but I need to clarify on whether I get D or I get some D power 3 by 2 or something. I need to go back and check that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are no other questions. I'll stop sharing. Any other questions? Okay, so then I can stop this. Yeah. How do I stop share? Stop share.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah.
If there are any other questions from the audience, you can ask. Otherwise, we will thank the speaker.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Prashant. So we enjoyed your